Have you ever wondered what the ancient Druids actually believed? Not the Hollywood version with the long white robes and the vague connection to Stonehenge, but the real historical priesthood that once guided the spiritual life of Celtic society. Their knowledge was secret, their rituals powerful, and yet they left behind no sacred texts. So how do we know what we know? Well, let's begin with what survived. The spiritual life of the Druids, known as Druidism or Druidry, first entered the historical record between the 4th and 3rd centuries BCE, though its roots may be far older. Like the mystery traditions of Egypt and Greece, Druidic knowledge was oral, initiatory, and esoteric, meaning it was hidden, preserved through direct transmission rather than public display. The Druids were the priestly class of the Celts, responsible not only for religious rites, but also for astronomy, jurisprudence, medicine, and philosophy. According to Julius Caesar, in his commentaries on the Gallic War, Druids underwent decades of memorization, learning sacred doctrine by heart and never writing it down. This wasn't out of ignorance, but intention. Sacred knowledge, they believed, was too powerful to risk being misunderstood or misused. Julius Caesar goes on to say, in his commentaries on the Gallic War, written 52 to 51 BCE, that the Druids do not think it right to commit their teachings to writing, though in almost all other matters they use the Greek alphabet. The Druids used the Greek alphabet for secular writing due to contact with Mediterranean trade centers like Massalia, but deliberately preserved sacred teachings orally to maintain their sanctity and initiatory exclusivity. Stuart Piggott, in his work titled The Druids from 1968, explains that the Druids deliberately avoided committing their doctrines to writing was not due to illiteracy, but to a reverence for oral transmission as a spiritual exercise. Miranda J. Green, in her book The World of the Druids from 1997, expands, Druidic knowledge was transmitted orally, held as a sacred trust, and was encoded in mythology, ritual, and the natural world. It might sound inconvenient to memorize your theology instead of reading and writing it, but in that oral discipline was a kind of reverence. This concept of spiritual memorization echoes through time in esoteric traditions, like the Jewish Kabbalah, which once forbid its initiates to write down teachings, and in Freemasonry, which also employs memory, ritual, and symbolic transmission. The idea was simple. Truth isn't just something you read, it's something you embody. Esoterically, the Druids held a worldview rooted in nature, number, and the cosmos. Their sacred calendar was aligned to celestial cycles, like solstices, equinoxes, and lunar rhythms, all echoing the macrocosmic order mirrored in the microcosm of human life. This cosmology linked them with Pythagoreanism, which also saw number as the language of the universe. Like the Greek mysteries, the Hermetic tradition, and early Gnosticism, Druidism emphasized the immortality of the soul and the journey through multiple incarnations. Caesar notes that the Druids believed death was a mere transformation, not an end. This allowed them to face life and even battle with profound calm. Nora Chadwick, in her 1966 book titled The Druids, writes, there is ample evidence to suggest that the Druids taught the immortality of the soul and its passage through successive incarnations. Ronald Hutton, in his work Blood and Mistletoe, The History of Druids in Britain, written in 2009, elaborates. The Druids, as depicted in classical accounts, fit into a pan-Mediterranean tradition of priesthoods guarding esoteric knowledge, linked to cosmic order and rebirth. But Druidism was not just metaphysics. It was a system of ethical instruction, symbolic ritual, and initiation. Entrants passed through levels of understanding: Bard, Ovate, Druid, each representing a deeper grasp of the mysteries. This initiatory structure aligns it with the Western esoteric tradition, a spiritual lineage more unified than most realize. But next, Druidic practice was nearly lost. In the years 60–61 CE, during the Roman invasion of Britain, the Druids were violently suppressed. The Roman general, Suetonius Paulinus, led a brutal campaign on the Isle of Mona, modern-day Anglesey, where Druids had sought refuge. Groves were burned, temples destroyed, their oral traditions, bound to memory and voice, faded into silence. What we have left are fragments from Roman authors like Pliny, Tacitus, and Lucan, and from later medieval reinterpretations that blended fact with fantasy. Still, beneath the layers of loss, something real remains. The essence of Druidism survives not in books but in patterns, in the way symbols reappear across cultures, in the reverence for trees, stones, stars, in the idea that knowledge must be earned, not merely acquired. Roman poet Lucan writes of the Druids in the poem titled Pharsalia, which details the civil war between Julius Caesar and the forces of the Roman Senate led by Pompey the Great, that to you alone is given knowledge or ignorance of the gods. You dwell in the deep woods, remote from the world. And like other mystery traditions, Druidism saw the outer world as a veil, a symbolic tapestry that both conceals and reveals the deeper order of reality. Some modern esoteric thinkers, like Manly P. Hall, noted that the ancient Druids, though lacking written doctrine, transmitted spiritual science through natural symbolism. Hall observed that the Druid priests were initiates of a secret school that paralleled the Eleusinians and Pythagoreans, suggesting a common initiatic framework linking the esoteric systems of Europe with those of the ancient Near East. Modern Druidic revival movements, especially from the 18th century onward, have attempted to reconstruct this wisdom, often inspired more by Romanticism than archaeology. But their intent echoes something timeless: the urge to recover the sacred in nature and the cosmos. In 2006, author Philip Freeman writes in his book The Philosopher and the Druids that Druidic teachings, though lost to time, centered on the harmony of the cosmos and the soul's role within it. Barry Cunliffe, in the work Druids, A Very Short Introduction, from 2010, maintains that the Druid was not simply a priest, but a judge, teacher, philosopher, and scientist, versed in the natural world, in law, and in the sacred rhythms of time. So what does Druidism teach us today? That memory can be sacred, that the cosmos is a living book, and that some truths must be passed hand to hand, voice to voice, heart to heart, not because they are secret in the sense of being hidden, but because they are sacred in the sense of being earned. That's the mystery that endures. Our next video will move from the Celtic world of the Druids onward in time to the desert monasteries of Egypt and Syria, where a new current of hidden knowledge emerges, known as Gnosticism. Like the Druids, the Gnostics guarded hidden knowledge about the soul, the cosmos, and liberation from illusion. So what happens when that knowledge challenges the world's most powerful institutions? Like and subscribe to find out. Thank you for watching. Find more at joinseek.org.